Okay, so this is a quick 10-hour update review on the new 2024 KTM 300 EXC TBI. Like I said, I've had this for just about 10 hours now. I did a previous video where I kind of gave my initial impressions, and now I've got a little bit more time on the bike. I thought it'd be good to kind of update that. So big news is I freaking love this bike. It is amazing. It is so light, so maneuverable, and so powerful, and the power is really where you want it, right down low. I was saying to some friends this weekend that it rides like a 300 should ride. You know, after riding TPI bikes for such a long time, I actually forgot what a 300 is supposed to feel like, and this is exactly what it's supposed to feel like. It's got tons and tons of low-end grunt. You hardly even have to open the throttle. You hardly even have to apply the clutch, and it will just tractor up everything. It's a torque monster. It just wants to climb. You know, with the TPI models, and mine didn't have the TSP mod and the head and the remap and all that, so it was just a basic TPI model. But that one, you know, if you were going up something gnarly, the revs would tend to fall, they would tend to drop slowly but surely, so you'd have to keep kind of feathering the clutch a lot to keep the revs in the right range, you know, and so you just had to stay ahead of the bike a lot. This bike, doesn't matter what, you hardly even have to crack the throttle open. You're riding around like less than 1/8 throttle, and you're feathering the clutch slightly, maybe slightly, but most of the time you can just leave the clutch alone and it will tractor up everything. And the revs do not drop. It just keeps pulling, and that's exactly what a 300 should feel like, and that's amazing. But it's more than that. The chassis, the way the bike handles, it is so nimble, so light. The front end feels like you can just place it wherever you want to. You know, it's going up gnarly switchbacks and stuff like that. It makes you feel like a hero, because you can just, you know, pop the front wheel, put it anywhere you want, turn it, you know, and you feel like you're just sort of hopping along on the back wheel, because you can loft the front wheel so easily. It's so light. It's a combination between the engine being so torquey and this and the frame and the ergos just being quite suited to what it's trying to do. And not only that, in the twisty stuff, it carves. It's so flickable. The way it kind of turns in just inspires you to keep turning in a bit harder, pushing it a little bit further into the corner. You're not sort of trying to get all the way over the front of the bike and then like push down as hard as you can on the outside bar and foot peg to try and muscle it around the corner, which I found I was doing with the gas quite a bit. You know, you had to be in the right position and get all that downforce on the opposite side of the bike to get it to turn. With this thing, you can just sit back, sit up straight, tuck it in, and it just carves. It's incredible the way it handles. So yeah, I mean, like that's kind of the overview. I'm loving this bike. This is probably the best bike I've ever had. The suspension out of the box is the best suspension I've ever had on a bike. I've had other suspension that was better that I had tuned, but straight out of the box, this suspension does everything you want it to do. It holds up, it doesn't deflect, doesn't blow through the stroke. It's comfortable. Now that it's bedded in a bit, it's actually loosened up a bit. I took some clickers out to between the comfort setting and the sport setting, so it's comfortable for the rocks, but it still works well in the faster stuff as well. And you know, so from that point of view, the suspension is phenomenal on this thing. A few things that are not perfect. The back brake is very powerful. It's too powerful. It's almost got no brake feel. It's like this is a Brembo. brake system, and it's either on or it's off. And it's very hard, you know, you're going down some rocky sections and you're sort of struggling to stay on your feet and balance, you know, especially if you're not a pro rider. And it's sort of just locking up every now and then because you're applying too much brake force. I think I will go to a non-sintered brake pad to help with that, which is something I used to do on the older KTMs. And it's just the Brembo brakes are really just too good for what they're doing. In terms of the front brake is, yeah, it's excellent. I love the Brembo front brakes. It's one finger braking. It's very progressive. You can feel it everywhere, and you're not short of power. So those Brembo front brakes are always great. The Brembo clutch, on the other hand, I'm used to the gas clutch, which was really good. It's very not light. Apparently it's got a 9mm piston or something. I don't know. It's what Rich Larson from the IRC channel says. But this particular clutch, it engages very far out. So like this part of the motion from here, from about there to about there, that's brake clutches out, and that's clutches in. All the rest of this, there's nothing. So I'm having to stretch my finger out quite far, and admittedly I have got the levers inboard. I'm having to stretch the finger out quite far, and I found it quite hard to get used to that. I think it's just a me thing, but I've pulled the lever as far back to the bar as I could get it, just to help with that. And what that resulted in actually is going down hills. If I was doing this, I was pulling the clutch in like that, and going down hills, the clutch would still be slightly engaged, and that would cause the bike to stall a lot. So I'm having to modify like how I go down hills using these 2 fingers or something, or sometimes even like that. But it's a bit of a compromise, and I guess it's just me not being good enough with the clutch or something to deal with that. But the reason I shifted them inboard, first of all, was because I got these new Cycra Pro rebound handguards, which are pretty cool. They spring back like this, and they've got this metal bar that comes over here, and it's a little bit more sturdy, and it gives a little bit more support to the master cylinder, which is nice. But obviously if you have a big crash, you're probably going to break levers. But I've had a few spills and the levers didn't break, and these handguards are really nice in the trees and stuff. The wraparounds that I used to have, every time you sort of tagged a tree, it would throw the bike and you would feel very uncomfortable. These, it just kind of brushes off and you keep going, so that's great. But because I have these handguards on and they needed to be sort of out here, I had to move the clutch and the brake actually inboard, which I usually do anyway because it gives you a bit more leverage here. But what happens then is that you have to pull the lever all the way back to the handguard, and that results in, sorry, to the handlebar, and that results in when I'm doing that, sort of in that position, it's still slightly engaged. And when you're going down a hill and it's kind of starting to load up and it's getting a little bit more, the revs are starting to sort of decrease a little bit, it tends to flame out. And so like I said, I have to modify my clutch work because of that. The fuel pickup is a little bit of a problem. Remember, we have the fuel pickup over here, and it's normally not a problem. This weekend though, I was on a ride, and for some reason this thing uses an astronomical amount of fuel. And I think that, actually, as a side note, I think that there's something going on with the ECU, because this happened on my old TPI bike as well. For the first 10 hours or so, it used up a crazy amount of fuel. And I think what is happening is there's some sort of program in the ECU that's like It's like a break-in program, break-in map or something like that. It's delivering a lot more fuel initially while the bike's still breaking in, and then it switches over, because on that gas TPI bike that I had, it did the same thing. It was using a crazy amount of fuel, and then after about 10 hours, the fuel just doubled overnight. It was insane. I mean, like, I was going from being able to do 50 kilometers in a day to 100 kilometers in a day, just like night and day. So there's something going on there, and I'll be interested to see if that happens with this bike. The same thing happened on a friend of mine's bike, a gas that was exactly the same as mine, and it did exactly the same thing. So I think, I haven't heard anyone else say this, but I've noticed it. But I think there's some sort of break-in program happening there. But anyways, on this weekend, we were riding in some really wet, gnarly terrain, muddy valleys, and one minute I had a half a tank of gas, and the next minute I was down to like about there, and I was like, oh boy. And we were down in the thick of it, and we had to struggle for a few hours to get back out, and eventually we made it to a dirt road, and we had to take the dirt road back because I was running out of fuel. And driving down that dirt road, because the fuel pickup is in the middle of the tank there, you know, when you're riding in the trails, it's sloshing around and it's going in the middle. But on the dirt road it wasn't, so every now and then it would go burr, 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 and I would have to like shake it around a bit. I was doing all sorts of funny dance moves on the bike to get the gas to slosh around and go into the middle. So that was a bit annoying, but it's not a deal breaker. The map switch, sorry, not the map switch, the starter switch is still an issue. I'm starting to hate that thing actually. It's just a bit annoying, like when you're in a very tight spot and you need to get to it. It just doesn't start up nicely, and the stop switch as well does, like, you have to press it super hard to get it to stop, and that's just a little bit annoying. But I'll give you an example like of the kind of stuff we're riding here. Probably won't show up on camera, but this is a bit of a ledge here that you've got to come up, and so this ledge here is actually fairly steep, and there's a sort of a rocky climb. You got to go up there and up there, and you know, on the gas I would have to sort of, as I approached here, I would have to give it a whop and then clutch, and then it would zick up here. This one, no gassing it, just whoop 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 whoop, hit there, and as you get here, the clutch is out and you're just on the throttle, and it just, the front wheel sits up and it just sails over all of these rocks, and you end up over there with no issues. It's just amazing the difference in the two bikes, and yeah, it's a real game changer. So anyway, that's my 10-hour review of the KTM 300 TPI, sorry, TBI 2024 model. Yeah, loving it so far. Interested to hear if you got this bike, what your comments are. Let me know. Cheers.